go, the final Living Torah broadcast for 2024. By the time this comes out next week, it will be 2025. I don't know about you. I think back, 10, 15 years ago and thought, how in the world could we ever get to this point? And as we're here, I'm wondering how in the world could we ever get to this point? Because what I see going on around us is just beyond words. But as we're going to see in this week's Torah portion, the Father is faithful. And that is really, if anyone is trying to put their trust, their faith in anything outside, anyone outside of Him, they're probably going to be let down really, really bad. I'm in the process of putting together a message. I actually spoke some of this to Life Assembly this past Shabbat. I'll be coming back and redoing that to be released in the month of January. It's coming out very soon. And it's on what does creation teach us about life? What does creation teach us about our Creator? And so I'm looking forward to releasing that. I think it's going to be maybe something to just start off the year. Maybe not in a deep theological way, but a way to start off this year with this very concept of, yes, He is in control. And it's one thing to say that, it's quite another thing to actually believe it, and then it is another level to actually walk in such a way that it appears that we know that He is in control. And this goes to this Torah portion, and it's been, it says in chapter 41 of Bereshit, Genesis, at the end of 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing beside the river, and you can read it on from there. 2 years of silence. Joseph has gone through so many things in his life. Now, consider this, I'll get back to this in just a few moments, that when he went into Egypt, he was 17 years old. So at this point in time, it says he is 30 years old. The last years, from being 28 to 30, have been nothing. We don't read anything about it. He's just sitting there by himself in a place of relative silence. We're not told anything about his life. We're not told anything about his job descriptions in the prison. As I was talking to Barry the other day, and he was teaching last week on this concept of he is put into Egypt, and he's given a place of prominence. He's thrown in jail. He's given a place of prominence. Hey, wow, that's wonderful. But it's like being, the person in charge of the jail, the prisoner. I'm the lead prisoner. Well, it still means that you're behind bars at night. And so even though he's given a place of prominence, we can applaud that and wow, that's wonderful, but he's still in exile. He is still estranged from his family, from the land that he is promised. And so, as good as life may be at times in this place of exile, understanding we're still in exile. We are still prisoners in a foreign land. And so this time of silence, this long time, is this maybe the most significant time frame in Joseph's life? Is that he has time to think. And that will bring forth something a little bit later on when we see this beginning to play out. And we consider, Joseph being in the prison for this 13-year period, 2 years of silence. Yeah, waiting for the dream, waiting for this dream to happen, to come about, to bring forth the culmination of the dream. But I challenge you to go, as I do quite often in my life, to Revelation chapter 21 and read verses 1 through 4. I saw a renewed, and the word there should be, I believe, should be renewed heaven, a renewed earth. And it is the words that talk about what I call the dream that began everything. Everything in life. This is why I have a sign behind me, dreams don't work unless you do. Everything in life begins with a dream. But there are times in life in which it appears that no matter what the dream is, that it's silent. We're not moving forward with that dream. But the truth is that his dream, for 6,000 years, he has been actively working. And there may be times in history that's like the Dark Ages, in which it looks like, well, he's not anywhere at work here, but yet he was. He had a people called Yosef that were in a prison, the same as we see Joseph in a prison. And at the end of that 2-year time period, he comes forth. Well, there is going to be, if this is prophecy that we're being given right here, and I believe it is, of course, that there's coming a time in which the fulfillment of a dream begins with the dream coming back to a prominent place. But consider that as Joseph is now 13 years removed from his dream, at least. We're not told the how long it took between his dream and the brothers, selling him into, or trying to sell him into slavery. Could have been a few years there, I don't know. But at least 13 years. But consider this, that the Father, the Creator, has been waiting for 6,000 years for his dream to come forth. But just as there was the bringing forth of the cupbearer and the baker that would trigger the beginning of the end, if you would, is there going to be something that will trigger the beginning of the end of us moving into the Creator's dream? If you would go with me to Psalm 126. Psalm 126 is one of the Psalms of Ascent. And it says, starting in verse 1 or 2, depending on your translation, when Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh restored Zion's fortunes, we thought we were dreaming. Our mouths were filled with laughter. Our tongues shouted for joy. Among the nations it was said, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh has done great things for them. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh did do great things for us, and we were overjoyed. Return our people from exile, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, as streams fill wadis in the Negev. Now, that verse is very prophetic in that a wadi, is similar to what I saw in Colorado, in Arizona specifically, where there is a dry riverbed. There is nothing. There is not a puddle. There's no moisture at all, no perceived moisture, and all of a sudden a storm in the distance, and that river is overflowing to a point that you're concerned about destruction, which is what we had in North Carolina a few months ago. So it went from absolute nothing. So return your people from exile as a stream, a wadi in the desert, to where it looks like it's dry. There's nothing going on. And all of a sudden, there is water flowing in abundance. Those who sow in tears will reap with cries of joy. He who goes out weeping, as he carries his sack of seed, will come home with cries of joy as he carries his sheaves of grain. These verses are talking about his dream coming forth. Shortest verse in the scripture is Yeshua wept. But the one who wept over a people who were rejecting him will one day have shouts of joy for a people who have received him. That's another message in that. But the first verse I want to go to is when Yah restored Zion's fortunes, we thought we were dreaming. And the wording here in Hebrew is Shev Sheva. And it simply means he turned again, or he turned to the turning. When he turned to those who were turning to him, or to put it a little bit closer, when he turned to those who were turning to Zion, to Jerusalem. I mean, go back just a couple of Psalms, and Psalm 122 is right there. Pray for the shalom of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. He turned to those that were turning to him. We could literally translate this, I believe, in that Yud He Vav He turned to restoration of Zion, and as he did that, we became as those who were dreaming to be with him in Zion or Zion. The dreams of the past became the dreams of the future. So, simply put, prophecy became reality. Are we living in that time in which prophecy is becoming reality? Stay tuned. I don't know. So the fulfillment began with a dream of Pharaoh, a pagan emperor, okay, that he uses. And this season is one that people will be talking about, Bethlehem and all of those things, and the pagan emperor. Okay, I know that didn't happen during December, but it is at least maybe somewhere a part of somebody's mind that he uses sometimes the most unlikely, which, by the way, should give all of us a sense of relief that he does that. So the one who embraced the dream, or the one who embraced the dream that he had some 13 years earlier, Yosef, as he embraced that dream, it then put him into a place in which he could become a key to the fulfillment of that dream and a greater dream. And so he stands before Pharaoh, who tells him about these dreams, and both of them with the cows and the grain. It comes to a 7-year period and a 7-year period. And I've taught about these. These are concepts that I know I teach about every year, but I think they're very important for us. That in my estimation, it looks like that there is going to be a 7-year period of abundance upon the earth. And that will then turn into a 7-year time of famine upon the earth. But remember that the prophecy may be being played out in the natural here, but it's teaching us of something in a spiritual aspect for our lives now. And the key to that is the word grain, which, as I explained last week, grain speaks of the word, of the Torah, of the complete scriptures, from Genesis to Revelation, in my estimation. So the grain, this 7-year time period that is going to be an abundance of grain, I have always wondered, is there going to be a time in history that you and I will be able to not only look back at, but to embrace in the midst of, and say that there was a time of the revelation of Scripture that was greater than any other time. And this is an instruction for those who are wise enough to, yes, we may be, and I've taught this in the past, and though I don't teach much on it now, Has my personal life changed? No, not really. I mean, in some ways, but for the most part, I'm still a believer in beans, bullets, and band-aids. But when people get their faith in beans, bullets, and band-aids, eventually those things are going to run out. And we're going to be really no greater than anybody else. But for those who have, in the process of the beans, bullets, and band-aids, and Bibles, I'll see, if you put Bibles in the mix of that, then you've got something, but you need to put it up front because that's where our focus should be. And that is storing the words and the revelation of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh that is being poured out, possibly in our day, I don't know. But it seems to be that there will be a time in which there will be, and Amos actually speaks of this, there'll be a time of famine, not for food, but of the word. Okay, and people will run to and fro. It doesn't even seem possible in our day that there could be a time in which we would say, well, there's revelation everywhere. I mean, all you got to do is go onto YouTube and waste hours and hours. And did you really find any revelation of Scripture? Or did you just find a bunch of people yakking about the same thing over and over again? It's a question, okay? It's a question. Where are we putting our time today? But it appears to me that this is telling us there will be a people who, though they may be preparing in a physical sense, will be putting the focus of their preparation on a spiritual sense. I think those will, in the end, will be the people that are wise. Now, let's face it, today, at least from what I see in the people that I interact with, and I don't just interact with people who are who are believing the same as I do, okay? I'm around a lot of secular, agnostic, even atheistic people at times. And it's been a great gift because it's kind of gotten me out. Somebody asked me this the other day. And I said, this has kind of gotten me out into the society in which we live instead of being bunkered in and hunkered down with those who are just agreeing with you. But for the most part, I see people that are not asking questions today. I mean, during December, here in this time period, that we have, December 25th, which today's December 24th, for the most part, I mean, I've been talking, kind of throwing things out, and, it's like being out in a pond, and there's fish there, and you're throwing bait, but they're not grasping it. They're too full with everything else they've been getting that they're not concerned about your worm or your salmon egg or whatever you're fishing with, okay? It's just like, I'm too stuffed. I can't eat one more worm. And so even though that may be the worm of truth, they're too filled with the worms of artificial. Now, that'd be an interesting one. They filled themselves up on artificial worms. We used to fish with those. To the point that when the real worm comes along, it's like, my stomach's too full. But eventually they're going to be hungry again when there's no artificial worms to be found. And that's when they will begin to think, I'm just speaking this out. That's when family members, neighbors, business associates, co-workers are going to be finally going, wait a minute, didn't you say something about this? Could you tell me about that? And those who have stored, who own the grain, they've made the grain their own. It's not, oh, well, let me check with Mike, or let me check with this person or that person. No, you've owned it for yourself. Those are the good people that he's going to be looking to, that they're going to be looking to. Now, these things that are being spoken here and what is being done, we are going through today in verse 32, it has been established is what Joseph says. These things have been established. The word there, the manner or the matter has been fixed, is the devar. The word manner is the word devar, or word. His word has been established. And therefore, we can have great trust in the fact that what he has established is going to come forth. Why? Because creation teaches us his faithfulness. That's next month's message. In chapter 46, verse 46, still in the same chapter, Joseph was 30 years old. Now, that kind of triggers a little bit here that the one who would be the fulfillment of Joseph's life, Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah, son of Joseph, was also 30 years old when he began to bring forth the dream of the Almighty, which was the Word becoming flesh and dwelling among us. That would be another message here. Now, his name is changed to, I'm not going to go with the pronunciation. I will go with the English, and Strong's translates it like this, that his name that he's changed his name to is Treasury of the Glorious Rest. So Yosef, and I would much rather be called Yosef than, this Egyptian term here. Yosef's name can be translated Treasury of the Glorious Rest. Some have translated it like this, Revealer of the Hidden Things. So Joseph, in his life, his life is a prophetic message of a mystery that is being revealed maybe in our day. Verse 49, Joseph stored grain in quantities like the sand on the seashore, so much that they stopped counting because it was beyond measure. Joseph has one job in life, and it is this: grain. The storage and the management of grain. And that should be something that speaks to us in our own lives. That our one job in this, if we are in this prophetic picture right now, that we should be focusing. We may have other things that we're doing, okay? You can't just spend your whole day, 24/7 with a break for a little sleep, studying the Word, because what are you going to do? You're going to lose focus on what the Word is about, which is about the spreading of. So if a person does what the hermits and the monks have done, and these different cults I'll go with that, cults through the years, that you went off and you basically made yourself isolated from everyone else. Is this what happened to the Qumran community? Briefly, is that these were people who had isolated themselves. The Essenes are called today. They isolated themselves, so when John, Yochanan, came to that community, and it says in Scripture, the word came to Yochanan. What was that word? That the message that is being given is not just a message for here, it is for everywhere. And so there is a place that we focus on His Word, but we do not isolate ourselves from those around us. Therefore, there's nowhere to plant, okay? if you just stay in if you got a room that is devoted to seeds, and you spend all of your time in that room with those seeds, organizing them, memorizing them, looking at the aspects of all of the fruit. Well, this seed does this, and here's the bugs that I'm going to be needed to protect it from, and you know everything about a seed, but you never go out into the garden. What are you going to do? You're going to starve to death, because seeds don't give you a whole lot of nutrition. Fruit gives you nutrition. There's a picture of what I feel our day is to be. Now, with all of this, we see the tables turn now, and we're going to be looking from Joseph being placed into a position to now Yaakov. In chapter 42, Yaakov is in a place of the famine is affecting him. Well, this is everything in these last chapters has been a backdrop to Joseph being put into a position and embracing that position in order for an event to happen. The event that is going to be, that we're looking forward to, is the restoration of the family. I mean, if you want to boil down everything that's happening in the world today, you can watch the news, you can, whatever venues you use for your news, you can see the rising and falling of leaders, you can see wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes, famines. I mean, almost like Matthew chapter 24. But what is it about? There's the key to understanding all that's going on, and therefore having an ability to speak wisely to people regarding the events of the day, in that all that's happening on planet Earth today boils down to this one thing: the restoration of the house of Israel into the land of Israel. It's no more difficult than that, folks. It's about the restoration of the house of Israel being established in the land of Israel. Period. Okay? Pretty simple. Now, when the brothers come back into Egypt, there are writings that say that they had watched Joseph being taken down to Egypt. They knew he wasn't dead. They knew that they were lying to their father. They had lived with this guilt for 13 years. So when Jacob says, go down to Egypt, the first thing that comes to their mind is Joseph. And all the guilt comes back. So when they walk into Egypt, they're like, I wonder where he's at. Well, the last place they're looking for Joseph at is in the king's leadership of that day. They don't expect him to be like the second in charge in the land. And so when they see him, by that time, in 13 years, his dialect has changed. He now speaks Egyptian very well. He speaks it with an Egyptian dialect. In fact, if he was to speak Hebrew, it would probably not sound like it did 13 years ago. So his language has changed. His name has changed. His dress has changed. His customs have changed. Everything about him has changed. He does not celebrate Sukkot. His culture is causing him to celebrate December 25th. His culture is teaching him and is forcing him into at least a level of celebrating holidays and festivals that are not in this scripture. Now it says that we read that he ate by himself. He was still walking in as much as he could, and kudos to him. He was walking in his heritage. He refused to eat what Potiphar was eating. He was still maintaining his biblical identity to himself, but on the outside he looked like an Egyptian. So when the brothers came into the room, they don't recognize him. Why? Well, he walks like an Egyptian, he talks like an Egyptian, and he looks like an Egyptian. And in the scheme of things, it is all about that he is to be the revealer of hidden things. One of the hidden things is him. He is hidden. And there is a timing that is being brought forth in order for him to be revealed in his day. Now, it says in chapter 42, verse 18, on the third day. Okay, if you didn't get the third day thing, go back to last week. On the third day comes forth again, and that could be another key to us thinking that this is the day that we're living in today. Now, this begins to be the process going over onto the boys. In chapter 42, we will read that they finally admit to, and this is verse 21, they said to each other, "We are in fact guilty concerning our brother." Speculation. Is this the first time that they have admitted this openly to each other? We're not told that, okay? But even though we're not told that, I would imagine that it's kind of been like the elephant in the room, which is not even kosher. And so this situation that the Almighty has placed them in has brought them to the place of openly admitting what they've all been feeling for 13 years. Judah, well, we see that the different lead players in this, we see them come to a preeminent place in the verses. First of all, Reuben. Didn't I tell you, don't wrong the boy? But you wouldn't hear it. Now comes the reckoning for his blood. This is the essence of Reuben, as he didn't step up, but yet he's going to come up by later on and say, "I told you so." I had someone years ago that said to me, they were in a meeting, they said, "Well, I agreed with the person that was being challenged, but I didn't say anything." That's right, Reuben. I have to be careful there. I have a grandson named Reuben, and I'm expecting that he is going to redeem the qualities of his name. But Reuben's whole life is about compromise. And coming back later on, "Well, I told you should have done that." Yeah. Simeon, on the other hand, he took Simeon and put him in prison. Well, is Simeon the one that said, "Let's kill him"? Okay, maybe so. Maybe Joseph says to himself, "Well, that last 2 years that I had in prison really changed my life. I think I'll take my brother, Simeon, and I'll put him in there by himself for a while and let him think through some things." Okay? Because as we saw back at the time of Simeon and Levi at Shechem, okay, is Simeon, who ends up being dispersed into the tribes. Why? Because you don't want this guy by himself. He's going to be a problem. So he needs a little time by himself or dispersed into the tribes to get a different influence in his life. But remember, it's all about the grain. That's what the story, the account is. It's all about the grain. And so this is where we see Benjamin coming forth, and the pack that he says, take the grain and the goblet, all right? And put the goblet, I got to find where I'm at here. He takes the grain and the goblet and puts it in the pack of Benjamin. Who is Benjamin? Benjamin, the youngest boy. By the way, Judah has stepped up to defend his brother, but in doing so, this is sorry, I lost my place there for a second. I'm thinking about too many things. So in the scenario, it starts to turn to Benjamin. Benjamin actually steps up and defends his brother, which is what he didn't do 13 years ago. Benjamin, however, is a picture of a people, I believe, a picture of a people who are walking in faith in and obedience to the one true Elohim. A people who is referred to in the book of Acts and the book of Revelation, chapter 12, who are following Yeshua as Mashiach ben Yosef and are obedient to the covenant, to the Torah. So you and I may be the prophetic picture today of the prophetic fulfillment of the picture here being painted of Benjamin. And who steps up? Very important. Who steps up and defends Benjamin? Judah. You know, this is so remarkable. I've had this happen to me personally many times through the last years. I'll be sitting down in with Jewish friends, new acquaintances that I've been meeting. They start to kind of hammer me on what I believe, and I'm very free and open with talking about that. But I know that something in the room has changed, and this has happened more times than I can count. Something has changed when I get into something and it becomes a little tense in the room, and one of my Jewish brothers steps in and says, wait a minute, and starts to defend me. Start to defend who I am. Starts to defend what I believe. That is the fulfillment that is here on these pages. Now Judah steps in, and we read, it's actually in chapter 44, then he ordered the manager of his household, fill the men's packs with food as much as they can carry, and put each man's money inside his pack, and put my goblet, the silver one, just inside the pack of the youngest, along with his grain money. He did what Joseph had told him to do. This is a person who is walking in faith and is walking in obedience. And that's the person who will be key to the restoration of all things. But what we have to do today is understand that there is a timing. There's a timing. Now, there's writings that say that Joseph actually revealed who he was to Benjamin. It's not in Scripture, so I don't know if that's true. I personally can see the possibility of that happening. If that is true, then that even places a greater responsibility on you and I in our day, that we would have a revelation but we would not be forcing that revelation on someone else outside of the timing for the revelation to someone else. Think about that. We are in a place today of preparing. Are you preparing with beans, bullets, and Band-Aids? Or are you preparing with Bible, beans, bullets, and Band-Aids? Making sure that this is not just the 4 things that I prepare with, but this is the one thing that I prepare with, which is the Scripture, and everything else comes out of that. Make sure we have the focus, and that we then embrace the timing and wait for His timing instead of what, unfortunately, I've been guilty of, and maybe you have too, of getting ahead of His timing and therefore messing up the whole process. All right. So may we have wisdom in this day to walk in the proper focus and also in the proper timing, and have patience to wait for when He is ready for us to come forth on the stage, not getting on the stage out of His timing. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov, have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem, God willing, see you again next week. Until then, may you have a great 2025, and in that, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.